All right, ladies and gentlemen, if we could get ready to have a meeting in a minute. We're giving one more board member or two time to get here, but if we can settle down, make sure your ringers are off, which I'm going to do to my phone right now. All right, I'm going to call the Champaign County Environment and Land Use Committee meeting to order at 6:35. Would the clerk call the roll, please?
Paul. Store.
Present.
Esri.
Here.
Furtado. King.
Here.
Patterson.
Here.
Thorsland.
Here. Thank you very much. We have one member absent. Hopefully they come later. The first item of business is I'm looking for a motion to approve the agenda and addendum tonight.
So moved.
Moved by Esri, second by Mary King. Thank you very much. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Hearing none. Second item up is the March 10th, 2022 regular meeting minutes. They're in the packet. First, I'd like a motion to approve.
Motion.
Mr. Paul, and a second. Second from Aaron. Is there any corrections, additions, or changes that anyone needs to see? I always look to Mr. Store for this because he's very good. All right. With them as they lay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, the minutes are approved. I have a lot of people for public participation tonight. I'm just going to call you in the order that I have slips here. We have a clock for 5 minutes. To keep things moving along, we only have an hour for everybody to talk. If you're in support of something and someone's already talked about it, you can come up and say your name and say you also support it, add any new detail, but we'll try to move through that so that we get everybody a chance to talk tonight. So first up, I have Dave Wolken. The public participation microphone is here. If you want to come up to the desk, push the middle button that has a little face on it and make sure it lights up red like that. And speak clearly into the mic for the benefit of our recording. All right, Mr. Wolken, the floor is yours, and you have it on. Very good.
Yeah, I'm one of the commissioners on the Triple Fork Drainage District by Rantoul. We have a long box culvert that's approximately 700 feet long that the Air Force installed on our drainage ditch that is giving us a lot of problems. It's not big enough anymore with the new drainage we have. We got water coming in from the new sports complex on top of everything else that we get. And this box culvert is it's a very heavy built concrete box culvert that the Air Force built, and there's a lot of big trees with the water ahead of the water that flows into it, and it causes some severe flooding when we get a bad rain. You know where Corky's Automotive is on 45. He's had a water in the office there about 2 or 3 feet up in the wall. That's how bad the drainage. It backs the water up. This box culvert is at the end of one of the runways that the Air Force built. It was designed in case it wanted to add on to the runway. That's why it's so long and built the way it is. So we want to get rid of that, and we don't have the funds to do it. That's what it is in a nutshell.
Anything else you want to add? That's pretty comprehensive.
Well, it's the box culvert is the snag in it. It's got a road. It acts as a bridge too. So what we want to do is leave the culvert there where the road is, and remove the rest of it. Now I got 2 bids here from last year yet, if you want them.
Yeah. If you want to give that to Mary, we'll make sure that that gets into the county board packet.
Okay, yeah, it's a time bomb. If we get a rain like they had in Gibson City last year, you're probably aware of what happened there. If we get one of them rains in Rantoul, that would be Fountain Valley Trailer Park would be all flooded. All that area would be flooded there. So it's a time bomb, really.
Okay, thank you, Dave.
Okay.
You can, well, that's fine. Next up is Mark Dorsey. Yeah, the button with the face on it there, right down in the middle. You got it. Thank you. The floor is yours, sir.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Mark Dorsey. I'm the water operator for the Penfield Water District in Penfield Compromise Township. And our Will Gray, our engineer, is here with me this evening. Will's worked with us for several years, but I wanted to, my reason for being here is to try to get a new water pressure tank, 12,000 gallon tank for our water system. Our water system was installed in 1965, and in 2012, we took out a loan from the federal government and have, of course, paying that back, but we had everything in our system at the plant, not the distribution. We had it upgraded and, new tanks, filter, high service pumps and so forth replaced, but we didn't replace our pressure tank. So it's 35 and 22, it's old. And we haven't had any problems with it, fortunately, but Jerry Hansford, he's a fellow from Siegel, Illinois, who does power washing and so forth, cleaned out the tank a couple of years ago, said it's in need of repair. And Jerry quoted me at that time $30,000 to do the work. And I talked to him in the last 2 or 3 years since then, it's up to $35,000 for refurbishing the existing tank. So I talked to Will and some others about, rather than investing in that old of a tank, try to see what a new tank would cost. I contacted several. I got one bid on paper back for $59,000. So, that obviously would be, I think, the wiser route to take with a new tank rather than, a 50-plus-year-old tank. And we've got 80 water customers. They're real good about paying their bills, but like all of us, things are tight, and so whatever help we could get would be appreciated. And that's my story. If anybody has a question.
Yeah, we don't do questions during public, but if you could stay around, if we have questions later on, we might call you back up. So
Okay.
I appreciate that.
Very
and
good,
I
thank you.
appreciate the information.
Yep, thanks.
All right, next is Kenny Davenport. And the mic's already on for you, Kenny, so the floor is yours.
My name is Kenny Davenport. I'm here on behalf of Eastern Illini Electric Cooperative. Don't have anything to say except I'm here to answer questions or do whatever I can to help with agenda item 8B. We're trying to get a couple of towers put up on some of our substations and to assist with our internet access there. And that's all I had. So thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Davenport. Yeah, that case comes up later. That's in our bucket of things that'll be here on a 30-day hold. So, but it's good you're here if there's questions about it, and then it'll sit here at ELOC until next month. Next up, Richard Watkins. And I'll just say in advance, with two kids that played sousaphone in the band at Muhammad Seymour, thank you very much for your service.
Hello, my name is Richard Watkins, and I was asked to come here by Sagamon Valley as I am a resident in the area that's affected by the gas leak by the north of Muhammad. I can only share with you how that has affected myself. I am familiar with almost most of the neighbors that have been affected. There's about 20 of us or so that's been affected by the gas leak. That happened a little over 5 years ago. And at this point in time, most of the people there have done a class action lawsuit, and nothing has happened that I'm aware of to this day, over 4.5 years later after the lawsuit with attorneys. My wife and I decided not to go with the lawsuit. We decided to, partly because I didn't trust attorneys, I guess, any more than I trusted People's Gas, but we decided to work with People's Gas, and we did work with them, and they put in 2 years ago a system in our house that is state-of-the-art, approved by EPA just 2 years ago, and it actually takes out almost 100%, as close to 100% as you can get, all the methane gas out of our water. So we actually have really good water. The downside to that, they put the system in. I don't know what it cost. I have no agreement with them. They will not assign an agreement with me. So there's a problem as far as if we ever sold the property or anything forward as far as maintenance of it. Right now they do maintenance. They have a guy come out once a month and change the filters. And the system is very elaborate and it is very, very good. That has not been offered to anybody else that's involved in the lawsuit. So all the other homeowners do not have that. They have older systems that are not doing a very good job. And they have we do get bottled water from the company. My two concerns are, and I think the concerns for everybody out there are these two. One, to have clean drinking water. We had clean water before 5 years ago, and now we do not. The second concern we have is simply land value. Most of us that live there, not everyone. There is a couple young families, but most of us are older, retired, and if something would happen to my wife and myself, is my property worth at least as much as it was 5 years ago before the leak happened? The answer is probably not. Most people probably would not come and buy my property knowing that there is methane gas in my water and that I have methane detectors in my house and that I have bottled water delivered. So those are the two concerns that we have. And the bottom line is, I'm not sure that this is where this all should be happening. By the way, I do not work for Sagamon Valley. I've not met their representatives till tonight. I talked to them on the phone because they asked me to come, but I have nothing to do with Sagamon Valley at all. The bottom line is, People's Gas should be paying for this. They have enough money to do that. I approached them and asked if I could have a meeting. There's a representative that talks with me. I said, can I talk with your bosses? Please, can I talk to your bosses and talk to them about bringing water up here? Because what that would do, it would not eliminate everything, but it would sure help get us in the right direction. Our land values would probably be, hopefully be more stabilized if we knew that you were not using groundwater, but we had good water supply. And I was told that the people above her, the bosses, they had a different direction to go, and that they were aware of this, but they did not want to go this direction. I do not know of what their plans are. And if anybody is close to the people's gas, it's my wife and myself, because in retrospect, going with them and having them put a system in, we're probably their poster child, so to speak, because we did what they wanted to do. They spent a lot of money, and they said they would do this for everybody else, but they wouldn't do it as long as they were tied up in a lawsuit. That's all I have to say. Any questions?
Yeah, again, we don't do questions here. If there's questions for you, we would ask them later, but
Okay.
this is really just your time to
Okay.
speak your piece.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up is Joe Hackney.
Good evening. Thank you for letting me address you. I'm Joe Hackney. I'm the village administrator of St. Joseph. Included in your packet, you should have a submittal from the village requesting a portion of the ARPA money that you're considering tonight. The project that we submitted is the Douglas Street storm sewer design work. The total design work will cost roughly $500,000. And we're asking for 250, or whatever you can help us with. This is there's already another gentleman that spoke earlier about stormwater issues in the county. It's obviously an issue everywhere here. This isn't a repair job. This is a design job for the older part of our community, which has a pretty historic drainage issues and pretty routine. Even this week, staff has been to residents' houses trying to address stormwater issues with them, and we don't really have a solution for them. We have people that have their sump pumps are running around the clock all the time. They don't have any place to send the water. This project, and if you would look at it, but you don't, I'm just here to kind of explain it a little bit, is a major trunk line that would run along the Douglas Street corridor in the community, and it would give us a place to essentially run other lines, other storm sewer lines that could connect the older part of the community. So it's addressing and investing money in an older part of the community that hasn't necessarily had that for a while, but it's also unique in the sense that if the village were to grow from a residential standpoint, it's to the east, most likely, is where it's set up for. And this trunk line gives us the opportunity to take some of that water from that future development whenever it happens. So it kind of addresses two major issues. It addresses historic stormwater issues in a older part of the community, but it also could help spur some economic development, specifically in a bedroom community that's been very much needed for over a decade in St. Joseph. I'm going to stick around for the rest of the meeting, so if you have any questions later on whenever you are considering the projects, I'd be happy to answer those. The village is going through the process right now of considering how to fund this project. This is just a design work. The overall project is going to be every bit of $5.5 to $6 million. I mean, everything's expensive. So anything can help, and we're doing our work on our end, trying to secure funding wherever we can find it. So if you have any questions, I'll be around later in the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Right now I have a tag team, Larry Johnson and Fair Graham. And if you can both come up together if you want. If just one person wants to come up, that's fine. Just make sure we know who you are.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Larry Johnson. I'm with Fairgram. Actually, I was here at your last meeting to discuss the Tolono wastewater treatment project with the mayor. I'm here this evening to also be available to answer any questions you might have about the Village of Royals application, wherein they have a rust removal water treatment plant that's fallen in disrepair due to age, and they need a pressure filter rebuild and replacement pretty desperately. So they asked if I might put a plug in for them while I was here as well. But I'm really here just to answer any questions about the projects that you have already heard about on your last meeting, and just wanted to be available. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm glad you're here. Justin Learcamp?
Hi, I'm Justin Learcamp. Thank you, County Board members, for your public service, and thank you for this opportunity tonight. While I am speaking for myself, I do share similar views as a large group of concerned citizens in rural Champaign County regarding both our current zoning ordinance, Section 6.1, and the proposed text amendment changes to that ordinance. I have attended and spoke at both the ZBA meetings on the text amendment changes to the wind ordinance and have tried to keep my discussion at those meetings close to the changes brought forth by planning and zoning. Mr. Hall had suggested at the beginning of the March 17th meeting that if citizens were unhappy with current zoning setbacks or other issues related to wind zoning, that speaking here tonight at ELOC meeting would be more appropriate than at the ZBA meeting. So that is why I'm here tonight. While it is true that there are no current applications in Champaign County for new industrial wind complexes, it certainly seems to be more than a rumor when agents for wind companies and other energy companies are sending letters and knocking on doors in Champaign County. One of those companies, NextEra Energy Resources, was just in the national news yesterday for being fined more than $8 million by the federal government for killing at least 150 eagles, including bald eagles. Incidentally, this morning, I saw a bald eagle just south of my house in rural Sydney, and it's nice to see that population coming back. It certainly seems like more than a rumor that wind companies want to develop in Champaign County when an energy company has filed for 134 new obstructions in height in the California Ridge Wind Complex area back in October 15th of 2021. This filing was done with the FAA and is available on their website publicly to see. 10 of these obstructions are in Champaign County, and it remains to be seen if this is a new wind complex or a replacement of the current turbines with taller ones. But it is important to note the height of these proposed turbines is listed as 519 feet, which is over the Champaign County current limit of 500 feet. Since this was filed back last October, it would not be a leap in logic to realize that this could have been the impetus for changing the text amendment that we're currently viewing at the ZBA. Many citizens at the ZBA meetings have spoke about the Harvest Ridge Wind Complex located on Champaign County's border with Douglas County. This is because many of us live in that area near Douglas County, and many, myself included, work or farm in that area. What we have witnessed happen in Douglas County is very troubling. The list is long and includes, but is not limited to, the corruption of county officials by the wind company, disastrous roads still today, 2 years after the project, damaged field tiles which have caused drainage issues for both farms and residents, issues with wells having huge increases in sediment from vibration, shadow flicker from turbine blades, and the strobe effect of the blades at nighttime from the red flashing lights. The list of problems goes on and on. The simple fact of the matter is Douglas County used poor judgment and poor zoning, resulting in their citizens and their valuable farmland being compromised. This area will never be the same, not in my lifetime and not in my children's lifetime. I have personal experience farming in this area of Douglas County. One farm that I rent just 3/4 of a mile south of the Champaign County line suffered from the construction of these wind turbines. My landlord told the wind company 3 times he was not interested in granting them an easement. On the 4th request, they made a sizable offer, and after discussing it with me, He granted them the easement. We both realize today that that was a mistake. The land was damaged by construction of the wind complex and the 1,600,000 pound crane that went across that easement. That sounds like an exaggeration, but it is not. There were 3 cranes that ranged from 1.2 to 1.6 million pounds. As damaging as that was, it pales in comparison to what the local residents in that area deal with on a local basis. In January, Mr. Storr spoke of how noise from some type of industrial complex disrupted his outdoor time on a vacation. I sympathize with that experience because most of us have had that happen on a vacation at one time or another, being noisy neighbors in a hotel, traffic noise, or whatever. It truly diminishes your trip and your ability to relax. But imagine having that issue in your home, your place where you spend your time with your family, your quiet time away from work or even from county business.
Yeah, you have no more time. but,
Okay. I would just like to make an offer that any person that would like to visit the Douglas County Wind Farm, I would personally see them around, county board member or ZBA member, county employee. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next up is Daryl Rice.
Good evening. I'm Daryl Rice. I live southeast of Philo, a couple miles. And thanks for this opportunity to visit with you, and I do appreciate your public service to our county. I want to talk to you a little bit, like Justin was, about the wind farm ordinances being considered by the ZBA. This is a real issue for us, a current issue for us. This company, NextEra Energy, has been in our neighborhood. They're knocking on doors and handing out easements for people to consider signing. And the residents there, my neighbors, including the 3 guys behind me, for the most part, we're not interested in living in the footprint of a wind farm. I know this isn't in your court right now, but it will be coming to you from ZBA soon. So I appreciate you hearing me out for just a couple more minutes. Even though the residents may not be interested in the wind farm, we have a lot of non-resident landowners in that footprint, and in fact, by far the majority of the people who own land do not live in that footprint, and so those folks are likely going to be making the decision for us people who do live in there. The lease that's being offered by this company is a 96-year lease. 6 years to build it, and then a 50-year lease, and then 2 20-year options. And so what we're doing now is we're making decisions that are going to affect several generations, not just ourselves, but for our grandkids and great-grandkids at least. If we aren't able to succeed in keeping the wind farm out of our neighborhood, we would really appreciate you folks giving us the best provisions that we can in order to live with that. And that would be keeping the height restrictions where they are rather than raising them. I know you're considering unlimited, and also giving us the best setbacks possible. We really like what Livingston County has done with their 3,250-foot setbacks, or 6 times the height, whichever is greater. Something like that, I think it would be very desirable. That would help with the sound, the shadow flicker, health issues, and potential water issues, many of the things that Justin was talking to you as well. I'd really encourage you to visit Douglas County and go sit under one of those things and just observe what it'd be like living real close to one of those with the sound and the flicker that if you're on a sunny day. And also the roads, they are still a mess after 2 years into the project. Thanks for hearing me out. You guys and ladies and gentlemen are our advocates when it comes to the county board, so we appreciate you hearing us out and hopefully standing up for us on that. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. Carrie Gifford and Terry Boyer.
That's all. All right, there we go. Well, I'm the general manager at Sagamon Valley Public Water District. A lot of you guys already know me, and I'm here just really to answer any questions you may have tonight with our request for $500,000 to design the water main going up north to the People's Gas Leak area. Excuse me. A couple of things I'd like to point out is like the other gentleman said, People's Gas should be paying for this. But unfortunately, a lot of times with bigger companies, to get things like this settled, it takes 20, 25, 30 years. And we got to look past the problem and to the solution. And that solution would be starting with a design, the $500,000 we're requesting. That gets us to shovel ready. And once we're shovel ready, I think maybe that will help with the political will to release the money that we've got tied up through the state capital budget, the $3.8 million for construction. So we're here to just answer any questions and request that we receive the $500,000. That's all I have.
All right, thank you. Don Wathier.
Hi, my name is Don Wathier. I'm with the firm of Burns Clancy and Associates Engineers. I'm here tonight representing the village of Ogden. The mayor asked me to come and attend because their meeting is right now as well. So I'm here basically to answer questions about the 4 projects that Ogden submitted. They are interested, obviously, in doing some work. They have funding for projects, their share. 3 of the 4 projects are shovel-ready, essentially, can be out for bid in as little as 30 days. So again, I think the documentation sort of speaks for itself, and I'm just here to answer any questions when you get to that point. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Susan Monty.
Yeah, I put up a slide earlier to see if it shows.
Yeah, if you could keep the mic by you while you're working the buttons there, that'd be great. For those who don't know, Susan knows how to work this room.
Hello. Jeez. Great. Hi, I'm Susan Monty. I am here this evening on behalf of the Champaign County Environmental Stewards, an all-volunteer nonprofit organization, which has as its mission to advance efforts to provide area citizens with safe and convenient collection options for household materials that pose potential problems at the end of their useful life. This May, our board of directors will likely approve the launch of a capital campaign to raise funds to acquire an existing warehouse or storage facility to be retrofitted to function as an HHW collection facility. So I'm returning in April. I was here in September to ask for a larger amount of funding for a new facility, and I talked a lot about the rationale and the need and the public support for an HHW collection facility at that meeting. Tonight, I'm just going to review 3 points that I want to share with you to clarify the request. So the facility would be open part-time and year-round, open to the public twice a month. The facility will provide a total of 24 opportunities during the year for the public to drop off household hazardous waste. Estimates are that the upfront costs will run $1,500,000 to $1,750,000. The intent of CCES will be to facilitate the facility startup, to arrange for needed contracts and intergovernmental agreements to be in place, to initially administer facility needs, hire the services of a part-time hazardous waste contractor, and ultimately a part-time administrator. There are 3 separate pieces of this effort, and our request for ARPA funds is to only be for the facility upfront costs. And it's just amazing that this timeline is just so consistent with the ARPA fund timeline. ARPA funds, as you know, need to be obligated by end of 2024, and expended by the end of 2026, and that really aligns with our timeline that we hope for. And so I'm going to shift this to the next slide. I'm just going to talk a little bit about the request, and our request is for $650,000. All of it would go for the first 4 items listed here: a capital campaign to raise the rest of the funds needed, facility purchase or lease, design review, local siting approvals, and then any additional upfront additional costs, such as listed here: legal fees, inspections, equipment, furnishings, signage, all that kind of stuff. So there's no shortage of ways to spend ARPA funds for that upfront cost. I'll be here this evening to answer questions, and there's a lot more information in the packet from the last September meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susan. Next up is Will Gray.
My name is Will Gray. I'm an engineer with Donahue and Associates. I'm here on behalf of the Penfield Water District to support their effort to replace the Hydro-Pneumatic Tank that Mark Dorsey talked about earlier. So I will be here later on to answer questions if anything comes up. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, both for your brevity and for your expertise. And I next have Ted Hartke.
Good evening. I prepared a slide, a few slides, and I assume this group got it already, but it's not queued up on the computer for us to present tonight, is it?
I do not know. Did staff get anything? Okay.
I did forward the email with the attachment to
Yeah, you
ULOC
did.
members.
So
Okay, that's what I'm referring to.
Yeah, the board members all have gotten it, and it was in our email earlier this week, but I don't think we have it here for presentation to the meeting tonight because we already have it in our email.
Do you have it in your packet?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
It kind of makes it hard to present something when I brought in my slides to present and I can't show it to anybody.
Yeah.
You got it?
Yeah, we all have it.
Can you
we
pull it
were-
up?
Well, we're not set up to pull up our email here on the computer at work. It's in our email, and
Okay, so 2 weeks ago I had planned this out that I was going to come here and I sent it up. Can I get an opportunity to present this to the board at a more lengthy than, this is going to be impossible to do in 5 minutes.
Well, this is public participation, and that is a 5-minute period. That's number one. Number two, I'm not sure who you sent it to. If you sent it to staff, they forwarded it to us.
Okay.
At that point, did you ask for a chance to address the board as an agenda item? Because that's what you're asking for.
It worked great at the ZBA meeting, and I did the same exact thing.
The
So
ZBA meeting is a
This is public comment.
public
It's limited
hearing.
to 5 minutes. There's no timer.
Yeah.
The other gentleman was limited to 5 minutes. Mr. Harkey doesn't get
Okay.
special privilege. So if we
I'm
could
going to do
start
as
your
best
timer.
as I can.
Yeah, and I've got my timer running here. I'm not sure why Mary didn't start it on this one, but. Okay, you can go ahead and
Okay.
start it now if you want to keep an eye on it, Mr. Hartke. And I'm sorry that maybe there was some confusion with what you wanted to do tonight, and maybe it wasn't explained how this part of the meeting works.
All right, can I begin?
Yes.
Okay. My name's Ted Harkey. I lived in a wind complex in Vermilion County, and my wife and I and my kids were chased out of our home because of wind turbine noise. And tonight, my presentation that you guys got in your email talks about how the Illinois Pollution Control Board noise limits, those maximum noise limits, don't protect families inside their homes. And in my packet, I gave you a lot of supporting documents and proof that this is a big problem, and it's going to be a problem if you allow noise levels to be louder than 39 dBA at nighttime for people living in a wind farm. Invenergy, they built the wind farm around my house, and when they submitted their application said that at 40 dBA, that begins sleep interruptions for people living near wind turbines or other noise sources. And then further on in my presentation, I have some charts in here for the actual noise levels measured at my house. We have, at nighttime, whenever we complained, we started complaining when it was in the high 30s, and a couple times it was up to 46 or 47 dBA at my house at nighttime. In my packet, I had listed all the complaints that Invenergy included into their noise study when they presented to my county board to prove they're underneath the maximum noise limit for wind turbines using the IPCB standards. I'm here today saying there's no way to live in a home that's at the maximum noise level allowable in the state of Illinois to be able to sleep inside your home. Before I went public with our problem we were having, the wind company has shut down the turbines 51 nights while when we were having trouble, and we had not told anybody what was happening. After we started to complain publicly, they refused to turn off the turbines at night. I don't know how much time I have left here, but I have 2 minutes. Thank you. The IPCB noise limits are they are failing people to be able to sleep inside their homes at night. And when we tried to hire an acoustician to come to our home to measure it, we tried to hire Dr. Paul Schomer from Champaign, Illinois. Dr. Schomer was a graduate student on the committee when the IPCB standards were created. And he's testified at many wind farm zoning hearings that the IPCB noise limits never, ever anticipated or took into account the noise of wind turbines, because this happened in the 1970s when the idea of wind turbines was never even contemplated or thought about. And his testimony to Livingston County, Illinois, for another Invenergy project, he took the actual layout of the project and the actual distances of homes from every turbine, and the turbines were 500 foot tall. He did his analysis, and every distance he pushed back, every 250 feet, when he got to 3,250 feet, there were still 2 houses that were unprotected from nighttime noise. And that slide, when he presented that, was the basis from the Livingston County setback distance of 3,250 feet away that they've relied upon. So I'm asking the ELUC committee, carefully look over all my stuff I sent you. I want you to let people sleep in their homes at night in the wind farm and not have the maximum noise level available, like what happened to my house. I see my time's up. Thank you for your time and trouble.
All right, thank you. All right, I don't have any more slips up here right now. Does anyone else want to speak tonight on any of the issues before the board? Raise your hand. We can get you a time up at the mic. Going once, twice. Okay. Thank you, everyone, for coming. Those that are going to stay, especially ones that we might have questions for later, I really appreciate that you're here tonight. And stick around and we'll proceed. All right, that closes public participation for the night. We're now on to communications. Does anyone on the board have communications to share with the board or the audience? Okay. Moving on to item 7, new business. These items are for information only. It means we're not going to be voting on them tonight. The first item up is the Sagamon Valley Public Water District proposal. Again, the ask is for $500,000 in the ARPA funds, and this is for a water main project to go up through that gas-affected area. Does the board want one of the principals to come back up? Do you have questions? Chris does, so I'm not sure who wants to represent for Sagamon Valley, but I think we have a few people here that can handle it. All right, that's good. The microphone's already on. If you need a second one, maybe we can get you one or you can share.
Good evening. Thanks for coming. I'm Terry Boyer with Donahue Engineers, District Engineer for Sangamon Valley Public Water District.
All right, Dr. Stewart, you have a question?
Sure. This is, quite a big ask, and I kind of wondered, is this, all of this much needed to provide relief for the people that are affected by the People's Gas leak? So, thank you. Okay. So I'll take a first crack at it and then let Carrie follow up. But the ask is for the full design. So there were multiple phases that were being considered early on. And when the opportunity came up for ARPA funds, the thought was if we could design the entire project and have it ready to go, then as grant funds become available through the State of Illinois capital bill or other Build Back Better funds, we would be ready to go and get moving on construction right away. Some of the bigger time-critical pieces are going to be some of the environmental reviews with the Illinois Department of Natural Resources, the Illinois Historic Preservation. We may have some archaeological requirements to take care of during the design phase, as well as multiple easements, because we do have 141,000 feet of pipe to put in, and to figure out how to route all that, through private property, et cetera, all up in that northern county area. So that's the summary. That was the reason for the large ask, is that would get us to a complete design for the entire thing.
And the complete design for the whole thing is for a larger area than the People's Gas affected houses, or is it only for that?
It does. It has additional housing to the east where for future, where the wells are older anyway and where the gas could potentially go. And we do have some maps, I do believe, that break out where we originally were looking at phasing of design with construction. And we can provide that to you tonight if you would like to see that.
Oh.
Go ahead. Uh-oh. Got fine. So,
Yeah, if you don't have enough copies, make sure Mary gets a copy
I
because she
think
can
we
make
do.
ones for later.
I think we. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
You can go all the way around, but make sure John and Mary get a copy as well. Thank you, sir. Chris, are you done?
I think I am for now.
Okay, Mary.
I'm not as familiar as I probably should be with the lawsuit right now against People's Gas, Light, and Coke Company, but what kind of mitigation is being sought by the litigants in that case?
Well, we're not involved with the legal part of this, but as of today, there's been nothing done up there. I do know that for the mitigation portion. And I don't believe there's any plans for any, from what I've heard, is for so far to do any mitigation.
Stephanie?
So a few things. I've had the opportunity to talk at length with both Mr. Goss and and you and the person that was there before you, and um, about this project. I think it's important for several reasons. I study environmental justice a lot in my own work, and I study campaigns specifically around gas companies, and the timeline on them and trying to get them to move is horrendous, right? And that's always the case. The things that I appreciate about this proposal is the detail, obviously, that you've put into it, but I think several folks have discussed the fact that the ARPA funds are very much on a clock. And so one of the things I think all of us have to weigh with all of these projects is the feasibility to get it done. And so what I appreciate about this particular ask is that it's concrete and for a specific phase of the project that we can have confidence that we'll move it forward in a way. I do think, though, that we as a board, and I'm not usually too into like rhetorical gestures, but I would be interested in seeing us as a board at some future point also, in addition to this, passing some sort of resolution that says to People's Gas to get that they need to move on this. And also that says to the state legislature, because my understanding is that there's been conversations with the state legislature on how to move the rest of the project forward. And, they've gone so far, but like you don't have a check yet, right? And so I think we as a body should also be publicly speaking to those entities, because this is frankly something that should not stand in our county.
And if I may, I'll just address part of that. So the request from the state was for $3.8 million, which was allocated in the budget. And as you mentioned, there has not been a check yet. That $3.8 million represents what we would consider the first phase of the project. So that would be booster pump station, ground storage tank, and kind of the backbone line up Route 47 that will then allow us in the future to serve the remainder of the phases as they develop. So if it's the board's pleasure to just think about only going to the 250,000 level for the ARPA funds, that would accomplish the design for that first phase. And so we just wanted to acknowledge that there is an opportunity, to only do the first phase design and get that backbone system in place, and hopefully that would free up that available dollars that are already allocated in a quicker fashion. Yeah, it's 252, 300. He wants to correct me on the exact number.
I'm sorry.
All right, I will say I was a resident of Newcomb Township for many years until recently. I was there for the big Roman candle back in the late 90s. That was spectacular and also terrifying. I'm in full agreement with Stephanie and probably a lot of people up there that this problem lays at the feet of People's Light and Coke. It's the gas company's problem. There's maybe some reason to think that we shouldn't have pushed as much development up there as we have, but the people are there now and these are their homes. And to have your water affected in such a fundamental way by a commercial enterprise. And we're here now as a political body with a very political pot of gold that we got from one particular side of the politics, and are trying to do what we can to right some of these wrongs that had almost nothing to do with the county at all. So it's, just in general for everyone, this is an opportunity that we're not going to see again. I also am with Stephanie and with the representatives from that area. You guys came in with a very concise request. You're well along in the project. We can do some real good for real people here. I think this is a valuable thing to do. And hopefully down the road, we can sort out a way to do something better for someone else with the money that's going to get spent now to fix what something has done to these people. Is there any other questions for the Sagamon Water folks? Kyle.
Just want to join, I think, everybody else in saying that this seems like a really good project. I definitely understand the frustrations with People's Gas. Agree with the gentleman earlier and Terry that this is something that they should be paying for, but the reality is that they're not. It doesn't seem like we have a good mechanism to do that with our endless appeal system and our civil court system we have in this country, and lack of regulations on corporations. But it needs to be done. So we have the money. As Eric, I think he called it magical pot of gold. Right now, that's I think that this is something that we need to spend some money on.
All right, any other questions from the board for these folks? Stephanie?
Just more like a point of information. One of the things that we've recently done on the board is we've been really trying to figure out how do we leverage these ARPA money. We got $40 million in ARPA, which sounds great until, we could just spend it on water, and I'm just going to be real. We got 11 other projects we're doing, we're solving a lot of problems in this county, right? So one of the things that we did is we put some grant writers, we got 2 part-time grant writers on our staff, sort of in recognition of the fact that, just to be blunt, a lot of times smaller communities don't have that kind of infrastructure in order to, we just, as a county, leave money on the table. So I would encourage, and this just kind of goes for everybody, if we can identify additional money that could be leveraged, do you know what I'm saying? And you all would need resources to get that done. I would really welcome, to reach out and have that conversation. Because for the first time, we as a county actually kind of have some of that capacity. And my understanding is one of them has experience with sort of infrastructure-y, environmental type of grants. So that's another thing I just wanted to throw out there, not just for this, but in general, because one of the goals that we have is to try to figure out how do we leverage the money we have to get to the $10 million project. And I think that that's an important piece.
All right, anyone else? Great, thank you very much, both of you, for coming tonight.
Thank you very much.
And everyone
Appreciate
else
it.
who came and spoke about this. Next up is item B, 7B, the Triple Fork Mutual Drainage District. I think Dave Wolken is still here. We'll see if there's more questions. You have a nice, concise package as well. You're very clear on what you're trying to do. So we'll see if the board has anything further they want to ask you about it. Questions from the board? Aaron?
Yeah, I guess I had one question. Is that area there around Corky's, is that in the Rantoul limits, the village? I wasn't.
I think the village line is just north of there.
It's just north. Okay.
Chandler Road, I believe.
Okay, that was just a question I had. I wasn't sure. I didn't try. I guess I didn't try looking earlier. I just happened to think of that. But
the box culvert that I'm wanting to get rid of, that's in the old Air Force base there.
Yeah.
Right next to near the runways.
Okay. That's all I had. I just happened to think of that.
Stephanie?
My question is pretty simple. The 35 grand that would match with the 70, y'all got that?
Sorry.
Am I on the right one? Oh no, I'm sorry. I'm on Penfield. I slipped them in my mind. Never mind. Pretend I didn't say that. Penfield, that's my question for you when you all come up. I apologize. I was going down this chart instead of
A little early warning there for the
budget.
Penfield folks.
Sorry.
So it's kind of like getting the test answers before
Sorry,
the
never
test.
mind.
All right, Dave, is there anything else that you wanted to share with us? I think you wrapped it up nice. This is a pretty straightforward thing that you're asking for us to help fix.
Yeah, it's really not in our district. It's all our water goes through that box culvert. It's like I say, it's 700 feet long. It's pretty big, but it's back in the 40s or 50s. Whenever that was built, it was big enough, but just not anymore. And
Chris?
Sorry, I was kind of juggling my notes here. Did this part of this, is that kind of, you said that was kind of some is this one that's the runoff from the sports complex?
yeah, the water from that ends up going through that, yes. So it's on the very north edge of our district, but all that water will go through that box culvert on top of all the other farmland and all the other street. Really, off the former base, most of that water goes to that box culvert also. So it gets a lot of water when we get a big rain. I got a video. It sounds like Niagara Falls water coming out of that thing.
So when they built the sports complex, did they have to do a drainage, something to do with runoff? Because I don't think that's actually in Rantoul, is it? It's just outside?
It's in the village.
Oh, is it in the village? So Rantoul would have had to approve the.
If you want the engineer that designed that, he's sitting right behind me here. Don's back here.
Might be a good time to bring him up.
You want to say anything, Don? No. Don knows that box culvert I'm talking about very well. He's studied it too.
Mary?
So my husband is from Rantoul, and his family still live in Rantoul, and I also have a dear friend that lives just north of this area, and I can definitely tell you guys, it floods like crazy right there.
Yeah,
it has been neglected for a long time,
Yeah.
and with the construction of that sports complex, there's no way this facility can handle the amount of runoff you guys are getting
you're
out
right.
there. It's all just being pushed just south of town. So I don't know if we can I don't know what everybody else's feeling is on funding this, but it definitely is something that needs to be taken care of.
Yeah, and again, I'll point out that, had this been in the county, I'm pretty sure that P&Z staff here would have had some pretty, we have rules for how water is handled. So if it seems like the sports complex really pushed this over the edge, that's unfortunate that it hasn't been dealt with during the design and development of the sports complex. And again, here we are with our magic money trying to fix something that somebody who's making money has maybe done to us. Anything else you want to add?
Oh, go ahead. No, can I ask a question?
Again, as a member of the
Since I'm not
full
on the
board.
committee, but the county board, I'm familiar with this area. Is your district north of town or south?
South.
Okay.
It
So-
starts around the sports complex is the north edge of it, and the interstate is the west edge.
So you're trying to get rid of this culvert and get this water out of there faster, I'm assuming?
Yeah.
Okay.
The trouble with that box culvert too, that the trees in front of it, to the west of it, that water, if the big branches falls off them trees and it gets in that box culvert, nobody can see it because it's so long.
Yeah.
And Corky's has a high water mark on their office wall. It's about where your window is there. That's how bad it floods sometimes.
Okay. Thanks, Dave.
Thank you, Stan. Anyone else? Jacob?
Will that totally alleviate the flooding in Fountain Valley as well too, or is that?
Yeah, I think that should take care of that. Yeah. Yeah. Did you see the picture that I emailed? I lived on 56 South Point. Oh, well, you know.
Jacob, your mic.
Yeah, it's bad in it. Yeah.
Jacob, your microphone, just for Mary.
It should take care of that. Yeah.
Mr. Stewart.
Thank you for obliging me. If we remove this culvert and do this, all of this water is going to relieve the flooding, but I'm interested, that water will go downstream to where?
That channel ends up going into the upper Salt Fork there. It's to the west. There's good fall after that box culvert. Is that next section in the ground that flows through? There's a lot of fall there. There's not even a drainage district there. There's so much fall that nobody's ever had to do any maintenance on that really. Yeah, it does go to the west. I'm going to start to the east, and then ends up in this upper Salt Fork.
Thank you.
Great. Anything else for Dave? I don't see any. Thank you very much again, Dave, for coming.
You bet.
Appreciate it. Yes, you can leave now. I heard that. 7C is the Penfield Water District proposal. This is for the Hydro-Pneumatic Tank, and I think we still have some reps here, including the very brief and concise engineer, which we appreciate you coming up. And does anyone have questions? Stephanie?
Yeah, sorry, I have a chart and a spreadsheet that are like not in the same order, so I apologize. For the Penfield, the question I had was just, I know that you're asking us for 70 and then you need another 35. Just, do you got the 35? I mean, this is a timing question because as we've discussed, we got to get it done by a certain time. So will you be able to find out the rest of it?
Yes.
Yeah, we've got, over 100,000 savings.
Okay.
Is there, I know you were very quick last time. Is there anything you want to add about the project? I mean, it seems like,
Yeah, I'd just like to add that, like a lot of small communities in rural Champaign County, Penfield has seen a population decline over the years. They were 130 residents back in 2012 when we did the project at their water plants, and now they're down to about 80. And as that population base dwindles, it becomes harder to fund and pay for projects like this, let alone maintain your water system without raising rates on those people. So it would be really, beneficial to the community to have a little assistance from the county to take care of this issue. And, once this tank is replaced, there's really not a whole lot else that needs to be done at their water system for the foreseeable future. Like we said, we did the upgrade at the water plant 10 years ago, and that should be good for a while longer now. So that's what we're trying to target. The hydro-pneumatic tank, just for folks who might not be aware what that term is, it is the tank that takes the place of a water tower in the system that maintains the pressure for all the water services to the homes. So if they were to lose that tank, they would lose water pressure in their system. The residents would be forced to go in boil order until the pumps can switch over and pump directly into the system to maintain pressure. So it'd be quite disruptive and put them in an emergency situation if it were to fail.
Jacob?
You don't have any plans to sell your water once it's all the way done? No? Okay.
Anything else? All right, thank you both for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Again, precision and concise is appreciated. Right now, I don't know if Don wants to come up and talk about the Village of Ogden for the most part, but we're on to item D, which is the 4 projects that Ogden is requesting. Aaron?
Yes, Mr. Wathier, I believe you said you had 3 projects that were shovel ready out of the 4. Is that correct? Yeah, either one of them. But
Yep, that's correct.
I'm just curious because not that drainage isn't important, but to me, wastewater is a little more important. I mean, the way I look at it, I may be wrong, but the way I look at it is, I'm just curious, would the wastewater project be one of the shovel ready?
Not quite shovel ready, because the design is going to be completed in about 30 days. Then it's going to take probably 60 days with the EPA. So it's more ready, I guess, than say the Broadway Street, but it's it will be under construction this fall. Quite frankly, the wastewater treatment renovations has a better funding capability within the village than the drainage does, because the drainage is relying upon the general corporate funding, which pays for everything else from sidewalks to the janitor that picks up every day. So the drainage really is the more critical need from the village's perspective as far as funding goes. They've got over $2 million of work that they need to do, and have set out on a program over the next, hopefully, 15 years to try and address those needs. So any step forward they can make is doable.
Okay, thank you. That answered my question. I mean, yeah, I can when you explain it that way, I can see how the drainage for the funding aspect is more important. I guess I was just thinking purely from like health and safety, but not that those are totally mutual from one another, but yet I appreciate your explanation.
Yes.
Any other questions, Stephanie?
I wanted to say I really appreciated the one that followed the Kickapoo Trail, just because, you know, anytime you could kind of get into an infrastructure project and do two for the, you know what I mean? Like, and I get what I was reading the proposal, and I get what you were saying, that it wasn't the proposal said it wasn't their number one priority, but since that project's being done, and if you could get both done at the same time, that just makes a ton of sense to me. So I wanted to say I appreciated that.
Yes, that's one of the issues that the village has, is
Right.
that they have limited funding. So if one of the things they want to do is those elements of that project that are going to impact the rail trail,
Right.
they're going to install those within the next 30 days or so, so it doesn't impact the final construction
Yep.
of the rail trail. But that means they're going to take money away from their top priority project and not be able to do as much there. So that, you know, there's only so much money to go around. So, but yeah, that synchronicity between the two projects would be great. Unfortunately, the village didn't really understand that rail trail project was happening this year. The Forest Preserve didn't communicate that to the village until 3 months ago, when it was already out for bid.
Well,
So,
to me, that's the kind of thing that this ARPA money should be doing, is like leveraging opportunities, so that when an opportunity like this comes up, we are able as a county to support it, but then it doesn't mess up like the other priorities. And, you know, I've said this multiple times, that I think that especially when we look at the broadband infrastructure, that we really need to be in conversation with the Forest Preserve, because like, as they're going out and doing projects within the county, we could get, you know, more bang for our buck with that. So like, thinking about how all of these infrastructure projects work together is super important. And I think, I think, you know, I was impressed with all of the projects, but that one in particular just seems like a unique opportunity that that if we could, you know, put some money at, to make sure that y'all still have some money for your other priorities.
yeah, I would add that, you know, I don't believe that the village of Ogden ever anticipated that they would get funding for all 4 projects. They put those 4 projects out there as their next 4 big items. And so they understood that, you know, just wanted to give you an example of what the kind of things they're working on and doing.
All right, any other questions for Don? All right, thank you very much for coming tonight.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
I'm sure the mayor of Ogden would appreciate me saying thank you for all that you're doing. Unfortunately, he's doing his job tonight too. So.
All right, next up, I know that Brad is here. This is the Champaign County Farm Bureau request for cover crop funding. And this request has changed a little since the last time we were here. So if you want to maybe just really briefly go through what you did with the new numbers.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. Appreciate it. And with me up here is Steve Stewards, the president of the Champaign County Soil and Water Conservation District Board of Directors. So, yeah, Eric, basically, we over the last several months we've been here, and I heard a lot of input from folks, which I really appreciate the input and suggestions. We took a lot of that and made some minor changes to it. Mainly, we increased our involvement with soil and water here. And INREC, who is the Illinois Nutrient Research and Education Council, is going to be part of it. Their role is going to be doing sort of a white paper. That was a suggestion that we received from the committee to kind of document the process, how it works, not necessarily that it was a success or a failure, but what things we might look at changing and doing differently if the project was done again in the future. So that's one of them, is adding our partners. We did also took a look at the budget before we had the project stretched out to 2025. So we shortened that after a conversation with this committee. And then we really updated our budget some about with not only the acres were impacted that we were going to be able to benefit there, but also the incentive per acre. And that was after a long conversation with Soil and Water of some of the experience they've seen with the incentive side of things, and that what it really takes to get somebody to try something different that may impact your yields on the negative side and will increase your cost per acre production. So we kind of made some changes there. We talked a little bit about here on the very last page, we talked a little bit about how to include small farmers in there, making sure they had not only an equal opportunity, but perhaps a little extra opportunity to get it, as well as first-time growers as well, making sure the money was not just consumed by those already doing cover crops. We talked a little bit again in the middle of page 3. We talked a little bit about the verification checks. That was a point the committee had. And then again, at the very end, we outlined a little bit of the duties of how the process would be separated out. But at the end of the day, all three of us will be equal partners, co-partners in this, but we'll kind of each have some responsibilities and be sharing information back and forth with each other throughout the process. So with that, we're willing to take questions.
Questions? Mary?
What I'm finding a little bit interesting about the Schenke and Zuloff study that you're citing is that in this last month's issue of Successful Farming, so that's March 2022, they point out that they're saying, so Schenke and Zuloff also found that the subsidy will need to cover practice costs and provide a practice incentive, and a subsidy of $50 an acre is commonly mentioned in the discussion of cover crops, said Zuloff and Schenke, who estimated a nationwide average cost of $37 an acre for seed equipment and labor to plant cover crops. So I'm still very skeptical that this should be administered at a county level, that what Zuloff and Schenke are ultimately saying is that this should be a large-scale program run by the USDA and managed by Congress. So I just had to say that.
Any other questions for Brad or Steve? I have a couple for Steve. Maybe you have some experience on the Champaign County level. We have programs that are out there now. We have some people that are doing this, but what would you say is sort of your really rough guess of what percentage of farmers have embraced this at all or even tried it at all in the past 5 years, let's say, in the county? I don't want to.
I don't have good numbers. My estimate might be around 6%.
Okay. Do you think, and I'm going to be honest with you, I have a tough time with this one. Brad knows, I was the organic vegetable farmer of Newcomb Township. Had to do a lot of this with no incentive by requirement for certifications and things. Put a lot of effort into it. And really I was in Springfield on Sunday. I drove past nothing but brown fields except for a wheat field the whole way, including where there's a lovely sign that talks about the Macon County Cover Crop Initiative. It's sitting in a brown field. I don't know how much this will help in this period of time, or if it's just going to be some money that goes out. Some people are going to dabble in it, and when the money goes away, they're going to stop again. And so, the long-term impact of it may not be that great. That's a worry for me. You're here in the meeting tonight, and maybe I have in front of me here this lovely spreadsheet that Mary put together that, that we also worked with Stephanie and I, that, we have X amount of dollars, and we're looking at projects that are certainly a lot more than that. And I wish we could dig it all up. I wish we could do all this. I agree with Mary. I wish this was a much more broad program. That I spent a lot of time in Europe. I'm going to say it one more time. There isn't any brown fields in Europe in the wintertime. forage beets, grass crops, things go in. It's just a SOP over there, and they're not really that different than us in what they're growing right now. Maybe a little more diverse than around here. I would love it to see green fields all winter long, especially when I was up there, basically looking at the brown snow from everyone around me blowing into my field. But I don't know, from the perspective of the amount of money we have, how much we can invest in this for what we're going to get for the bang for the buck. So, and I haven't been compelled to change my mind based on what I've been hearing. It's a great idea. I love it. I wish it worked. I wish we could make it click with people. If I was a truck driver like I used to be and I needed new tires, I couldn't ask for the public to help me get what I need to do my job well. It was just a matter of things I had to do. I think this, in the end, makes farmers do their job better. It makes farming better. It preserves that topsoil. But I don't know if we're going to tip people onto the other side of the fence and keep them there. I think a much bigger program is what's needed for that.
Could I address that, or?
Absolutely.
Okay. I agree with you, Mary, that this does need to be a bigger. It's a big problem, and we, as you know, I represent the Soil and Water Conservation District here, and you folks have been very good about helping us for many years. And I don't know how many people have heard of the STAR program, Saving Tomorrow's Agricultural Resources. But that started here in Champaign County with the help of this board every year. And to your point, Mary, we at the Champaign County Soil and Water Conservation, through the STAR initiative, are working on a climate smart RFP to actually use what you helped us start here in Champaign County, basically all across the country. We have Colorado, Oregon, and Washington, Missouri, Iowa, and several other states are already on board with what you helped us start here. So why should Champaign County be involved at this level? Is kind of the question. This is moving farther, across the country. But the reason that I would suggest that the county think about this is that there's a lot of interest in carbon right now, and what we want to do, what we would like to see happen with this money, is kind of become an on-ramp for farmers who are try to learn these conservation practices. So as these carbon markets actually mature and become something that are something that can become that long-term, to your point, Mr. Chairman, for conservation to be long-term, there needs to be a market. There needs to be a reason the farmers, do this every year. We as anybody that's been involved with agriculture, and I'm sure with your experience, that there's so few things that we can control. We can't control the weather. We can't control the market. We control our practices. That's one thing we can control. So getting we farmers to try different practices is really hard, because the reason that we do the practices we do, we think they're the best. And so trying to get us to try new practices is hard to make that change. And so what could happen here with this money in Champaign County would be what we're proposing is to try to help teach our farmers how to do these conservation practices. And so that as these markets mature, we will be in a position here to take advantage of them, because it takes 3 to 5 years at a minimum to start seeing the benefits from cover crops. And so there has to be a place to start. And so that's what we're suggesting with this money, is a way to start down that road with our farmers, to help them learn how to do these practices on a small scale. We don't want farmers to try a lot of cover crops at once, because there's risk. And so that's the idea of this program. And I understand you have a lot of very important people asking for this money, but that's why we're asking you to consider it. This could be an on-ramp to where we could down the road see a lot more of these fields covered as these markets mature and we as farmers, are become a part of these long-term market opportunities.
All right, thank you, Steve. Stephanie?
So, and I've said this to Eric, and we're in a bit of a disagreement about this one. I think for some of the reasons that you've discussed, this idea of it being an on-ramp, like, this is something I think about a lot when I think about public policy. Like, how do you affect the change that you want? You say you drive around, and the fields are brown, and that's not what we want, right? And I hear what you're saying about Congress, that Congress should act. I think Congress should act on a whole plethora of things that it's beyond my comprehension that they don't act on, right? I think that for this, it's 0.5% of the funding that we have. And so, I've been reading about cover crops, right? I've been reading about them a lot in the last couple of weeks. I was out of town last week for work, and so at night I was reading some of the articles, and I'll just be blunt, like, some of the money that's been spent on cover crops in this country has just been wasted, frankly. It's been the kind of program where it starts for 5 minutes and it goes away, right? So, it's great for that. I get that these programs are not always effective. That said, I think it's worth trying because we are at a climate crisis in this country. We are in this world. And do I think that this program is going to solve it? No, but I feel like we need to take a swing at it. And to me, that's why do I think this is a perfect swing? Probably not. But to me, the idea that we could have the Farm Bureau at a table in a conversation that in a small way can get us, if we get 6 farmers, right, that are ready, that will do this in the future when, as you're saying, because this idea of carbon capture is coming in this country and needs to be coming globally, and we need to be ready for it. So to me, I get what all of you are saying, and I totally understand it, but I would like to see us move forward on this, and I totally respect that we're in disagreement on it, but I just wanted to share where I'm coming from on this, and why I'd like to at least see it go to the full board as a discussion, and I'll stop talking.
Kyle?
I guess to quote former Secretary of Defense James Mattis, climate change is the biggest global threat to our national security. A lot of times we focus on the dramatic things like shorelines disappearing, tornadoes and hurricanes, but the reality is that this crisis, to be dark, this crisis could be the end of all of us, and where it's going to end is right here in those fields. So I definitely understand the criticism or the some of the frustrations that this is something that will ultimately benefit farmers. They should be doing this already, but just like with the water issue, they're not. So if we could spend 0.5% to make our difference here in Champaign County, I think that's something that I could probably get behind.
Mary?
See, and I'd say you guys don't understand at all what I'm opposed to. And it should say something that the only 2 members of this committee who are in the Democratic caucus who have been members of the Farm Bureau, that's me and Eric. Because for people that weren't here last time, my family, this is the first time in 150 years my family is not farming in Kankakee County. I'm a farmer's daughter, I'm a farmer's granddaughter. The earliest pictures of me are in a baby carrier in the tractor because I was born in September in the middle of harvest. So I have a lot of issues with how much we subsidize the business of farming. And it's partially because I know the second that we stop funding this, people will stop planting the cover crops. The biggest barrier to changing anything in farming is the profitability of it. And when I was talking to my mom about it, she goes, "How much money did they pay your dad and your grandfather to park their board plow?" And I was like, I didn't think they paid him anything. And she's like, yes, because when the technology moves on, you have to go with it. And people are resistant, but it will happen. But should we be paying people for every single change all the time? I mean, why not tell the Chamber of Commerce to show up and we should pay everybody to get a savings account? And we're going to have the Chamber of Commerce give a $36,000 series of lectures on why you should have a savings account when you're a business owner. It's like, I just don't like the direction this goes. I don't like it.
Chris?
Thank you, Chair. 2 years ago, we could not have even thought about discussing this matter at all. We did not have one nickel to rub up against the second. And we are have a historic opportunity to nudge to nudge a community in a direction that they've heard about, and at least according to one farmer I talked with at length, can't figure out how to work it into his practices. This is, as Dr. Furtado pointed out, small change in the overall ARPA funding. And I think that it's well spent to pay for that nudge. And I thank the Farm Bureau, and incidentally, I am a Farm Bureau member. I have Country Companies Insurance, so I have to. To get these, to get the Soil Water Conservation of Farm Bureau, and I actually spent some time running down the Nutrient Research Education Council, and many of the projects that they fund are University of Illinois, including some folks who have extension appointments, and I would hope that you would invite them to be a party to your education because they have something to bring. I'd say I think this is a good gamble. I have no further comments.
All right, thank you, Chris. I think, Jacob?
Is there, how you said lead the way for carbon, and is there any way that you could build an incentive program for farmers who choose to go more towards the carbon and cellulose route so that you can use this money to help build that market in the same time?
Well, we're working on that right now. We're in this climate smart RFP. We're looking at we're looking at some of the technology producer or an energy producer is actually bringing in technology to produce renewable jet fuel. And in that process, they're looking at the STAR program, and they're needing producers that know how to do these climate smart practices. And so that's what we're trying to do is to take small acreages for our farmers and actually get them to try these practices, because you need to get some experience with it so you don't mess it up. And so then it could lead to that market that you're talking about.
University of Illinois hat, and I know they do a lot of that there. And my sister, did a lot of miscanthus study for that as well. Is there any way that we can help them, how they can help us pay for some of this too, or where they can use any of the data of these cover crops?
I don't know. I can't answer that, but that's something we can certainly look into. Oh, yes.
Absolutely, Jacob, and I think that's where NREC can come in as they work on this report and get some survey information from farmers throughout the process. That information will be public, of course, and be shareable with the university and shareable with other groups for that matter as well. So absolutely with sharing data. And as far as the bigger picture, when we talk about carbon, Steve said they've looked into it some and are going down a path. We're looking into it as well on our side, the carbon and some of the programs that are out there. Right now, the carbon program is really, that are out there, really, there's a lot of options out there, but there's a lot of unknowns with them, and there's a lot of risks. So we're I think between the two of us, we are looking at different aspects of it, and I think this fits into that effort as well.
Aaron?
Sitting here listening to the conversation tonight, I guess something that came to me, the idea of subsidizing the farmers to do this practice. I guess to a degree, I would kind of equate it to the idea of the subsidies that people get for putting their own solar panels on their houses and such. If you're looking at it from the idea of climate and changing the climate and such, those are subsidized. I get ads on video, like YouTube videos all the time that, like, if you qualify, you may get it for free. Your solar panels, but along with the storage battery from Tesla, even to put in your garage and have that installed on your house for free if you qualify. Now, I haven't looked into that. I'm not going to say, obviously, everyone I'm sure doesn't qualify, but that's subsidized. It has to be. Otherwise, they wouldn't be saying it's free, and it's not coming from the Tesla themselves, or if it is, to the end consumer, it's coming ultimately from the government. So I do understand that, yes, I mean, coming from a farm, that it's if the farmer doesn't even tries it for the period of time and they don't find the benefit to themselves, yes, it's not going to continue. The same could be said for the solar panels. If something goes wrong with them and, I mean, they quit working and the repair at that point in time is worth more than the person thinks it's worth, they're either going to just sit up there until they completely fall off, or they're going to take them down or something. They aren't going to fix them and replace them if they don't see the benefit to doing that, if something would go wrong with the whole system. So I would encourage this to at least go forward again to the full board and see where it goes from there.
All right, anything else? All right, thank you both for coming tonight, and thank you for working with us to try to make this work out. All right, the Champaign County Environmental Stewards proposal. Susan is still here. If the board has questions about this, Susan is available.
Two of the board members didn't receive this handout.
You were late. All right, any questions, Stephanie?
So, I've expressed this before on this one, that I think it's an important issue. I don't know that we've got it in the budget. And I do actually have one question about our budget here in a second. The big question I have for this is, if we gave the 650, how confident are you in the 850? Do you know what I'm saying? And have you identified potential sources? Because as you know, there's a clock.
Yeah, for sure. We've not done a capital campaign for a facility before, but we fully intend to give it our best efforts. It's just so exciting to have the IEPA on board to provide that needed piece of transport and processing. And I'm confident that with effort, the local municipalities and the county will be convinced during their budget review process to contribute to the operating costs. So it is like putting a puzzle together, and that is a missing piece, yes.
Jacob?
thank you for this. How many people could this facility potentially employ?
It's a part-time facility, so the employment would be part-time. A contractor would be a hazmat contractor. For example, our initial idea is to hire a contractor that specializes in hazmat. It may be possible, however, to employ local people who have the same skills. So we're planning to talk to Safety Clean, which is right in Urbana, which is part of Clean Harbors, which is the company we were looking at to employ as one of the major companies that handles these types of materials.
All right, anyone else besides Stephanie, or we give it back to Stephanie? Stephanie.
So sorry. So I'm trying to wrap my head around like the big picture, financial picture. And so, you know, we have all these different categories of ARPA money. And so we put 2 million into water, and we put money just like kind of at the end, we just like appropriated money, and technically it's in the county side of things. So I was re-looking at this, and I apologize. I meant to call you before the meeting, but I just clearly ran out of time. I wasn't even at the meeting in time. The latest chart that we got on ARPA money, there's $288,000 and I think $12 that's like literally unassigned. Now, like right now, it's under the county side of things, not the external facing side of things, but there's that. And then there's also $2,490,714 that just says other equipment. And so I didn't know, we don't really have a plan for that, do we?
If you're asking in the budget that we originally approved, that's what you think we have left?
No,
That's
I'm
not
talking
committed?
about, it's in the latest ARPA update that Kathy did for us. And I remember at the end, we had $4.4 million left in ARPA. We put 2 into architecture services, and we put 2 into other equipment. I believe we're using the 2 for architecture services for County Plaza. But then the 2.4 million, have we allocated anything for that?
We allocated last month the DEMS for the state's attorney, which comes out, will have to come out of that because it was not originally budgeted. And then the other was to be for in case different costs went over, because we were just estimating what we thought might be used. For example, I would say the digitization is probably going to cost more. We don't know yet about the construction of the whatever the clerk would like to have. Some of his construction renovation costs were included in there. So we just don't know some of those. We just were wildly guessing like it might cost this much or that much, but we didn't have any estimates or quotes.
For the full board meeting, Stephanie, are you wanting a little more definition to this, what you threw in that category? Would that help?
No. Well, I mean, I guess what I'm saying is I just want to know like what money we have left in this year's allocation. So I will say the clerk's digitization is already listed as a separate line. The clerk's equipment is already listed as a separate line. The clerk's space assessment is already listed as a separate line. I don't think the state's attorney's piece is listed as a separate line. And what was that? Does anybody remember?
No.
4?
Exact number, but it was something around the neighborhood of 350,000 for this year, and then
Okay.
we paid for 2 years of maintenance, which were 180,000 or something per year.
Okay.
I'm not
Yeah, well,
remembering the exact numbers.
Let's get back to the
Sorry,
kind
sorry.
of fundamental
No, but I just
thing
want,
that's here.
no, but what I'm saying is like, we need to have a conversation. Do we even have this much more money? Do you know what I'm saying?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm going with this, is I think it would be helpful when, should we recommend that this go to the full board? And it's sort of what we're working on tonight, is that by then, it would be nice to know what we think we have and where this would come from. And, but I don't want to keep Susan here all night while we try to figure out what we're doing in the spreadsheets. So if we could stew on that and try to get some of that answered for later, that would be great. I'd appreciate it. Chris, you have a question for Susan?
No, I do, actually. I just wanted to kind of ask Susan if she can remember the Champaign County Environmental Stewards and this proposal. How long did that committee meet, that ad hoc committee meet before we even kind of got to Champaign County Environmental
Right.
Stewards? I mean, this has been worked on for quite a long time.
Yeah, there's such a lack of funding in the state for this type of facility. It's just amazing to me. And this represents a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I appreciate the chance to even propose this project again. And I did want to come forward and just be sure you were clear that we didn't have any expectations that the county would be responsible for the facility or for the operation of it totally. So that's another main point I wanted to share. Yeah, any portion of that 650,000 would be a great help. And to answer your question, it was like 2013 when we started, 2015, that leadership team back then at the RPC.
So not quite 10 years that in planning for this.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Susan? Kyle?
I guess my question would be, under what entity would this exist?
This would be a facility managed by a firm or a company, administered by CCES and aligned with governments, subject to intergovernmental conditions and such.
Okay, thanks.
All right, anything else? You're right. Hopefully we can get some of Stephanie's questions answered. I think that'd be really helpful for us as a board. Susan, I appreciate all the effort and sticking around tonight. For those in the audience, we're going to get to some boring stuff for a little bit here, and then we're going to talk through the things that we want to recommend to the county board. But I'll let you know in advance that more than likely tonight we're not going to make yeses and nos out of the requests that we have listed under new business. We're going to make recommendations to put it forward to the full board for further discussion, where we'll really get down into the brass tacks. I appreciate if you all want to stay. We won't be asking you for any more information at that point. We're going to talk about it, but I don't want you to have the expectation that you're going to leave this meeting and go, yes, we got that. Aaron?
There are a few proposals that we haven't discussed under the old business or the new business information only, because they're like Thomasboro, Ivesdale, Ludlow, things like that.
Yeah, and we did, we might have a brief discussion tonight, but those people were here at earlier meetings. We've been working on this for a few months, for those that are only familiar with it tonight. ELOC has been where we've been talking about the water stuff for a while. So I'm not sure how far deep into it. We sort of know what we want to do with those. They've explained their case. So,
well, I just know we have some members in the audience for those if we have discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and it's completely up to you to stick around, but it's kind of like a TV show where you think we're going to find out who gets the final rose tonight. And then we're going to go to commercial and play a couple of really deep wind chimes and then tell you how to come back next week and enjoy the rest of the show. So, but now for some boring ELOC stuff, and I'm glad you're all here to witness this, because usually we do this all alone and in the dark. Yeah, that is true. We do have a couple people here that are for these two things. These are, the next two items under item 8 are here to allow for this 30-day review. So again, we won't be making decisions on it. We're just gathering more information and allowing other people to have time to contact the county about it. The first 8A is zoning case 030AT21. This is to amend the Champaign County zoning ordinance to add data center as a special use in the Ag 2 agriculture B4 general business and I 1 light industry zoning districts and add PV solar array as a county board special use permit to the Ag 2 agriculture in all business and industrial zoning districts, and authorize data center as a second principal use on a property in the Ag 2 district, and add special use permit standard conditions for both data center and PV solar array. And also add requirements for PV solar array as an accessory use as described generally in the legal advertisement. And before we go too far, John, do you have anything you want to elaborate, or is that, you did a nice job of putting this together in the packet?
Well, just point out that we've actually made this a little more restrictive since the board reviewed it the first time. Every time we do a search for data center, we find more scary stories. And so we added some extra noise control for data center. And I think when this was here previously, data center wasn't even a special use in B4 and I1. It was going to be by right. But the more we thought about it, we were more comfortable with as a special use. The ZBA thought that was good. The only no vote at ZBA came from a member who, as the ZBA discussed this, they started thinking, well, gee, we could actually revise the whole way we look at solar farms now. And it's like, yes, we could, but there's no real need to. But one member thought we should actually revise the whole thing, and so he voted no. But in general, they were very supportive of the proposed requirements. The Urbana Plan Commission recommended no protest. This will be at the City Council later this month, and I can report back in May.
All right, thank you, John. Any other questions from the board maybe for John about this? Any discussion about it in general from the board? All right, that's going to hang here for 30 days, and we'll find out things like Urbana's input to it, and we'll make a decision on this next month. Next up is item B under 8, zoning case 040AT22. Amend the Champaign County zoning ordinance to add new paragraph 421C7 to provide that a private or commercial transmission and receiving tower, including antenna, over 100 feet in height may be authorized as a special use permit in the Ag 1 and Ag 2 agricultural districts as a second principal use on a lot with an electrical substation. And again, John, if there's anything you want to elaborate on that?
No, I just, again, I thank the Eastern Illini Co-op rep for being here tonight in case there are questions. They showed up at the ZBA hearing. We really didn't get any comments from other members of the public. The zoning board thought this was a good thing, and they recommended it unanimously. And so I think we're moving along.
Since we have EIEC people here, is there anything you want to add at all? Okay, all right. Well, if you're happy with what we said, then every once in a while, I think maybe Chris has a question for you. Do you have a question for them or for John?
I hate to have you come all this way and not have a good
Okay.
question.
Always equitable,
Neither
Chris.
can I. I said I hate to have you come all this way and not get a good question. I don't have one, but the one that I'll offer is: are your some towers are constructed so that if they have a catastrophic failure, that they break apart in sections that kind of hang together so that they don't go clobbering somebody unsuspecting, so far away.
It's my understanding these will likely be poles and not towers. So I don't think they're going to.
Okay, let me revise that. Would your pole be constructed such as like a cellular telephone pole that kind of breaks apart, has kind of pre-weakened or pre-chosen spots where it can kind of break apart without kind of coming down as a huge long
So it falls
thing?
Oh, yeah. I have no idea on that. I'm sorry. Can't help you.
I hope you'll recommend that to somebody.
Certainly.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you for being here and toughing it out. And maybe by the next meeting, Chris will have an answer. I think we can find someone that can answer that for you, Chris. A little overlap with the broadband people, and I think we actually know someone that would know the answer to that. So, all right, with that, that closes out Part 8 of the meeting. Part 9 is new business, items to be approved by ELOC. The first up is a recreation and entertainment license for Generations Music Booking, NFP for live bands at the Champaign County Fairgrounds, 1302 North Kohler Avenue, Urbana, for June 30th, 2022 through July 3rd, 2022. Do I have a motion? Mary?
So moved.
Second from Aaron. Is there any discussion? This is the sheriff, John tells me, has signed off on this, so a non-controversial event. Any discussion at all? Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, that carries. And they will get their permit. Number 2, under 9, number B, authorized for public hearing on proposed zoning ordinance omnibus text amendment to update material management waste-related uses. And this will be continued into May of 2022. So this really is just, this isn't even here to be approved by us tonight. Susan is still here if you have any questions about this. But otherwise, we will let this stew until May 5th. Is everyone happy with that? All right, very good. Nice. We wrapped up 9. Now, everyone who stayed, we're back to what you're interested in. New business items to be recommended to the county board. The executive tells me we're not actually voting yes or no on these things tonight, except to move them forward for discussion. We're not going to make decisions on the amounts of money. We do have the board members a lovely chart that I hope can be made part of the board packet, the full board packet, so that it's on the web. That these water drainage issues revolve around the 4 rural districts. And in the ARPA money funding that we were magically gifted from Congress and President Biden, we took the first check that we got, and just to be clear, we got half of this money in our hot little hands, but we don't have the second. And we directed the money we do have on hand to these projects first. There's other districts, all districts will get part of this money for water projects. Those are going to wait for the second check that we hope comes in June. So we really are focusing on the rural areas because they have the pressing issues. Just real briefly, so far, and this includes St. Joe that came in late, and I know you're not on the agenda tonight, but we have your packet that you have, and thank you for coming tonight. In District 1, they've kept it very simple for us. Each district was allotted $500,000, and they have one ask, and that's for $500,000. District 2's got over $1 million, $1,040,000 that they're looking for, and that includes some of the things we talked about earlier, as Aaron pointed out, Ludlow and Thomasboro. Triple Fork and Penfield were here tonight. District 3 is close to $1 million. They have 915,000 projects. That's all the Ogden projects that Don talked to us about. Royal and St. Joe is included in that in District 2. So, and in District 4, we have the Pasodum, Village of Ivesdale, another Pasodum, and the Village of Tolona, which doesn't really have a specific amount, but we're already over the $500,000 at $681,000 there.
Hey,
So
Eric,
as we go through these to recommend them, yeah?
can I ask real quick? So Tolono
Yeah.
never got back to us with any kind of specific
We don't
ask?
have a number from Tolona as far as I know yet.
Okay.
I think as the mayor, they have that very nice package, and the mayor said as much as you can give us, which is what everyone is going to tell us. And, you know, honestly, I wish we had enough to fund all of this all the way through. Some tough decisions will have to be made. I, for one, am going to vote to move all of these forward to the full county board for discussion. What I'm going to ask is that the representatives in these 4 rural districts have some hard discussions with their constituents and really try to figure out their priorities and maybe give them to us in order. It's a shame Stan left because he's one of the ones that I'm looking for. The full board's going to look for direction on these things. We can't do it all as much as we want to do it all. So it will be really important to know what you want to do first. And if we're lucky and we get everybody on board with Build Back Better, if it comes back, more infrastructure, and this is an interesting situation. I'm going to say this and it might sound political. This is the first time I've seen people from both sides of the aisle start to get behind big government projects. And I think that's great, and I want to see more of it. I think that, one of the things we could do, the Farm Bureau in particular is a big organization that people listen to, is to get on your representatives' bottoms, especially the ones that did not vote for this money. And I will say that was every Republican in Congress did not vote for this money. This money comes with a big giant D stamped on it. It's still green, but it's Democrat money, and we are spreading it with priority to the rural areas first, because that's where it's needed most. And so get behind your reps, get that Build Back Better bill back, because there's more of it. And this is the way things can work. And if we have this opportunity to do it, we can do it really well. We hear about a water tank that was put in the 60s, and people wonder why we haven't put a new one in since the 60s. And I will tell you, quite frankly, every time something comes up to pay for that, the first thing you hear is, I don't want to pay any more taxes. We have legislation that doesn't let taxes get raised in a way that keeps up with the cost of doing business and keeping a town afloat. That's put there on purpose to stop these things from happening until you're in a crisis. And now we're in a crisis. And we have this magic money. And everyone has realized that this is an opportunity to try to do some of these things we need to do. This isn't how it should work, but this is how we're going to do it. Aaron, did you have something to add?
Thanks, Eric. I was just going to state, talking with the other members of my caucus, since we are the rural districts, there's only one, I guess, out of all these projects, including St. Joe's, that isn't on the agenda tonight because it came in late. There's probably only the one project. Well, let me put this, well, maybe I shouldn't say by project, but like Ogden having, I'll just bring out Ogden since they have 4 projects, without necessarily signifying which projects the money goes to. The idea is to give Ogden some money. Okay. There's only the one project that I've heard in the discussions amongst my fellow caucus members, and that probably has some of the least support. Not that it doesn't have support, but that would probably be the Triple Fork Mutual Drainage District. And that's just, I think, in large part, the way I understand it, is because Ludlow is such a small community. They would like to see a good chunk go to Ludlow, this being Diane and Jody, and then Penfield definitely, and Thomasboro as well. It's just, I think they, again, that's just summary. Now, that's not to say that we can't push it forward to the full board, but that's preliminary what I've heard talking to the my fellow caucus members. That'd be probably kind of the lower out of all of them listed, in terms of if none of them are going to get funded at all. And by none of them, I mean, again, Ogden, maybe we don't signify which project. I mean, that was a little bit why I asked Mr. Wathier about the wastewater, because my thought was maybe, and again, that was my thoughts, maybe, okay, we signify, okay, the 75,000, if we give them more than that, we designate, okay, 75 is supposed to go to the water plant, and then the rest to whichever drainage project. Well, maybe after hearing tonight, maybe we just say this is the amount, and if you want to spend it all on drainage, if that's your priority, do that. We don't necessarily micromanage. So I'm kind of using project and village, I guess, kind of interchangeably. in terms of if a village has more than one request for a specific project, I guess I'm in part kind of grouping it together. So again, like Ludlow, they have 2 requests, the one with no specific number, because again, whatever we can help, well, let them kind of, I guess, truly sort it out. Now, granted, it has to meet the deadline and everything like that being spent, but that's just, we're preliminary, I guess, to kind of information that out there is where I see the 4 districts, the rural districts, coming from the angle at this point in time.
Yeah, and what I'm proposing is to basically move all these to discussion at the full board, where we can hash out, here's your allotment, and come with information, and really make those decisions then. And again, I will honestly say, I wish we could do all of these and ones that we don't know about. They all need to get done because we're so far behind on this stuff. But yeah, the reps from those 4 districts you included are gonna, probably have to have some hard conversations, and then at the board meeting we'll be able to sort of get down into these brass tacks and really delegate. I like your idea to say, well, Ogden, you have this. We as a board would like to prioritize this part of it, but here's some more, and you decide what to do with that. I think that's probably a possible direction that we could think about viewing this, is to, we perhaps are allowed to show favorites here on the board because it's, we're the ones that are handing it out. So that's all good information, and I think that's the kind of detail that I want to hear. Jacob?
I'm gonna bring up, those meetings that this meeting took a long time, and we're still in the middle of it. So we're talking about adding essentially 18 items all at once for a future one. Not to sound selfish here, but some of the part of this committee is to trim some of the fat of these things. And if we're seeing a project, $6 million where they haven't asked for anything in a town of 110 people, they'll never be able to afford that. So I don't want to cause more problems later where we mismanage funds, where we send money to a place where they can never use it, and then it's a desperate place anyway. So we're not Ludlow's particular, but just people trying to run their towns the best they can. And if you have money, you're going to try to find a way to spend it, and then we won't have a way to recoup any of that. If does that make sense? So if we can think logically on some of these things to save some work down the road.
Stephanie?
I appreciate the idea of forwarding it all to the county board, but I do echo kind of what Jacob is saying, is that so that's going to be a long meeting. I know this has already been a long meeting. I guess one of the things I would say is for District 2, and this is nothing against their project, but the village of, I've had extensive conversations with Diane about Ludlow, and I know that if what we're going to say is that the people that represent the districts, that's going to weigh in, what you just described is the same conversation I've had with her. So again, it's not that I don't think Thomasboro is an important project, but they're asking us for full bore on $450,000. And if we know that the priority is Ludlow for 400, do you know what I'm saying? Like it's just unrealistic to think that they're going to get 450. So to me, that would be something that could easily just be cut, because we're not I don't want to forward something that we know we're not going to do.
I think
So I
the
just wanted,
executive wants to put some clarification on things first, and maybe it'll help the rest.
Yeah,
of
I
the
just wanted to
discussion.
clarify the one point about Ludlow. They have withdrawn their application for the sanitary sewer because they felt the water was more important. So there won't be a cost there on that one.
Yeah. Okay, so Mary?
I was just going to ask, so when are we going to decide what to cut? Like right this minute? Just start chopping heads? Because, I want to say to tell the Farm Bureau to F off. So I'm all right, are we going to cut that then? I mean, how many, are we going to vote on it then? Should we do a straw poll kind of thing, what we should and shouldn't cut?
Yeah, I was, again, the direction I was given from the executive, and maybe she wants to change that, was that we weren't going to have a hard vote where we decided numbers tonight, that we were supposed to indicate what this board felt was a priority and move those things forward. which is kind of a vague direction, which I'm not totally happy with. I'd be
You
very
can decide
happy.
numbers, Eric. You guys can decide numbers. What I need from this board tonight to move this forward is a direction. A straw poll is fine. It's not, it doesn't have to be official voting. Just to let me know, because I have to prepare an IGA for the full board to vote on. So if you want me to prepare IGAs, or you want certain ones taken out, or you want amounts of money, that's all, we can all discuss that tonight if you want to, or you can wait to the full board, but that's really what I need. The money is budgeted, so that we just need the IGAs at this point.
Kyle?
So you're talking about voting on intergovernmental agreements on these projects this month?
If you wanted to move them forward in April, which is the idea that you guys had at your last meeting, was you wanted to make decisions tonight to get them started for the summer, because construction needs to usually happen in the summer, then we probably need to do it at the April meeting. We can wait till May, but that's up to you guys. I'm just saying the time frame was that we were supposed to have all of them here tonight for you guys to discuss and make decisions about what you wanted to decide maybe to vote on, so that we could get some contracts signed.
Okay, yeah. I mean, looking at, there's $2 million have been budgeted for.
I have numbers.
What's that?
I have numbers.
Okay. There's like $2 million that we budgeted for this. My math, including the Farm Bureau's request and the Stewards request, is like 4.39 million. So there's a lot out of this that's not going to get funded, and really the spirit of it was that we wanted to have the representatives from the district. Sounds like, Aaron, is that what you're referring to? You have a number of what? So I mean, if we could have more clarity on 2 and 4, you know, what they want to, the representatives of those districts want to prioritize, I'd feel a little bit better about us doing this month. But yeah, I think that's something that we definitely need to, I mean, I guess we could have that figured out by the meeting if, you know, we had some good communication with those members and could kind of get it figured out. But yeah, it just, I don't know, it seems like a lot to process if we're just going to push everything to the full board to let them consider, because that's kind of our job, to get into the nitty-gritty of the details. That's kind of the whole purpose of a committee structure.
So let me put this forward. Maybe the executive doesn't like it, but why don't we not necessarily straw poll it, but actually kind of vote semi-formally to move some things forward and some things not. And we can go down the list, and when we get to Aaron's district, we'll get some input from you.
I've got numbers.
Yeah, Aaron says he's got numbers, so let's hear
for
them.
all 4 districts.
Is this from the caucus?
This is from talking with the members of my caucus from the different districts.
All right, this is exactly what we're looking for. So have
okay.
at it.
So, District 1, there's only one project, a $500,000 ask from Sangamon Valley, and the idea is the $500,000 for District 1 goes to Sangamon Valley. That is an urgent need, and I don't believe anybody in our caucus would disagree with that. Talking with District 2, Diane and Jody, the breakdown, ideal breakdown, what we would desire, those two especially would desire, with the idea that, you know, they know their district. Penfield gets the full $70,000 for their water tank. Ludlow gets $330,000, and Thomasboro gets $100,000. I believe that adds up to $500,000.
So my question is on that one then. For the $100,000 we would give to Thomasboro, do you have $350,000?
Yeah, I think Jacob's question is, and if you want to come up to the microphone, I'd like to hear this out of your mouth.
I mean, we can pay for the whole culvert replacement. We can pay for a lot of the water tank, but just to give money away to make you and put other places in a bind. And then
This is discussing with the two members from that district,
Right.
with the idea that they weigh in a little more heavily than anybody else.
But also, just to be clear, that math isn't right. So
Yeah.
380 plus 70, there's only 50 grand left for Thomasboro, not 100.
330.
Oh, 330. I
Yeah,
thought you said
330.
380. I misheard you.
So my
No problem.
question, and I think Jacob's question is too, if Thomasboro gets 100K, are you going to do the project? Or are you going to find something else to do with the 100K?
These are projects that we've been committed to prior to ARPA coming up. We've just been trying to figure out a financial solution to get it done. So we've had rough estimates on this without any engineer actually looking at it, which is where that $450,000 market came from before. Now that we've dedicated some money towards the engineer fees, the project is a lot larger than that. We've sent it back. What was that, Tony? 1.3 million for, but it's we can divide it into two projects. We've also kicked it back for some major changes to make it attainable. So we will be able to get, I guess the answer to that is, yes, 100,000 would be, of course we'd be gracious for anything, but that's going to be hard to do, for us to deplete half of our general fund, what we have left.
Right, but the direction we're getting from your reps is, this is how they want to divide it up. Aaron is speaking basically for Jody and Diane. So I don't know if they've had discussion with you, but this is apparently the discussion they've had. So, if, Aaron, if you're suggesting that this is what we want to put forward to the board based on your caucus input and in particular the reps up there, then that's what we would put forward to the board, I imagine.
That's, I guess, how I read it from the other members of my caucus. And
Right, any other?
Well, Stephanie.
Let's keep,
Sorry,
Stephanie.
I just need some clarification on that last answer, because this has got to be like a yes or no. Because we can only fund things that are going to be done in the timeline. I'm just be blunt, that is the driving thing. So that's a yes or no question. If we give you 100K, are you going to be digging this summer? Or at least designing this summer to dig next summer?
Short answer is yes, we will be. The project as a whole is slightly larger. It encompasses 3 streets. That project would get limited to meet our financial abilities to work with the 100,000, and we would be able to complete a project this summer, according to the engineers at least. So.
I forgot I should have added, and this would have maybe helped a little bit, but it's nice to hear that you can make it work. The idea was if Thomasboro, because I think this kind of got brought up, did get brought up in discussing with Diane and Jody. If you couldn't make that work, the idea, just say you couldn't spend it, then it would be Pasodum 70,000, the triple Fort gets 60,000, and Ludlow gets 370,000.
This District 2, no, he's in District 2. You said instead of Penfield, you said Pasodum.
Penfield. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, I misspoke. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I did misspeak there. Penfield would still get their 70. Ludlow would get 370. I mean, this was kind of the alternate. Ludlow would get 370, and Triple would get 60.
Yeah, and I'm actually, I know the Thomasboro people are here, but I see a real need to help with that triple fork myself. I'd be much more inclined to lean in this direction.
I believe part of it was the idea that it wasn't, and I believe we heard that from Mr. Wolken, he's not here tonight, but that it wasn't in their district. Granted, they get the water, but that also maybe the village could help somewhat with that.
Yeah, well, I'd really like to see the developer of the sports complex pay for that, but that's not going to happen.
Well, that's what I heard from.
Okay, so we have
District 2.
Basically, in District 2, we have the 2 alternates. One is this 70, 330, and 100. The other is 70, 60, and 370.
Yeah.
So we could maybe move that as an A and B to have an alternate path and 2. So I think we have some direction for 2. and 1 is easy.
Yeah.
So if you would enlighten us in 3, that would
District
be great.
3, we don't have enough, obviously, to fund everything. The idea was probably, and this, maybe quite frankly, a little bit, I understand it's not necessarily all their fault, but St. Joe coming in late, but the idea was probably 200,000 for Royal towards their project, their water main. They asked 250, but it's not the full. 200,000 for Ogden, which now sounds like it would be the drainage projects, depending, which one you determine is highest priority, especially since you indicate the wastewater treatment is easier to fund otherwise. And then 100,000 for St. Joe towards their storm sewer.
Any discussion
So
on
that-
that? That sounds like a reasonable,
That's the idea for
a reasonable.
the
thing to
idea
move
for
forward.
District 3.
And I'm just going to say again, I truly appreciate that you have this because, coming in here, I didn't know that you had this, and I thought we were going to really be beating things to death here, and this is great. So,
Stephanie.
Wait, though, one thing though, I do think that question I just asked them, like, we need to know that before we have like any
that's-
sort of formal vote, right?
I would-
Like that, like time, I cannot emphasize enough, like the timing question and and do they have the rest of the money question is super duper important.
well, I have, based on what I heard tonight with Ogden, it sounds like they would have no problem
Right.
doing that. I think St. Joe is pretty far along,
Right.
even though they were a little late getting their proposal in tonight. I think it's because they were busy getting it really far along. I don't know about Royal. They're pretty far along.
As far as
That'd be a good
everything
question
I've
to get
heard, I think
answered.
they would get it done, everything I've heard.
Yeah, so that sounds good. And Stephanie's point, in case you don't understand, is this money has to be used before 2024, at least allocated to be used by 2025? It's got to happen, and it's a misuse. I believe we have to scrape it back, right? So if you want to continue with 4, I think 3 sounds pretty good.
Okay, so for District 4, there's 4 asks, divided up this way, and this is where, since we have Pasodum in here, that's where I probably misspoke earlier, said Pasodum instead of Penfield, which I do apologize. So for the Pasodum Consolidated Drainage District, 75,000. Tolono, they don't have a specific ask, 75,000. Ivesdale and Pasodum each, for their 2 projects, 175,000. It doesn't make anyone, 100% complete in that district. It's closest to, well, it's not necessarily even close, I guess. It's just, it's again, yeah, I believe you, Eric, that, you wish we could fund all of them because it's obvious that these are needed projects. There's no doubt about that. The idea, drainage, it truly affects people, wastewater or drinking water. So it is kind of a balancing act, but that's just what, the thoughts are at this point in time, at least.
Stephanie?
So my concern I think my biggest concern is with District 4 is that out of all of the districts, because I get what you're saying, but like $75K on a $12.5 million project isn't going to even design the thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, is it really going to make any difference? Whereas dropping down, some of those other ones, like my concern is by trying to spread it so thin, are we, like, I know we don't want to say no to anybody, but we also want to get like projects done. This is again, what I really appreciate about this District 1 is they had a concrete project with a concrete ask for a concrete phase of a very big project. So for me, I do want to support what the members want in their districts, but especially on these 2 bottom ones that are really, really big, I'm going to need some sort of convincing that the $75K is actually going to get something done. Like, we are funding phase 1A of a 7-phase project. And if not, I think we should give the money to the 2 smaller projects because they could get it done, right? Like, I don't want us to just give people money for an ill-defined phase of the project.
I'm sorry for being ignorant and not really understanding how this money goes out. Is it like an escrow for the project? So they submit a project and then we give money for that funding of that specific project and that money's safe? Or are we just writing checks to town?
We are writing an IGA for a specific project. We can just do a general project like the whole $12 million project. What I'm suggesting and recommending is that we do it for a specific task or activity so that it can be spent within a certain amount of time. It has to be committed, so we have to give the money to the county or the entity by 2024, end of 2024, and it has to be spent. So they can have a project in progress that's still working until the end of 2026, but it has to be finished at that time. So if we're giving them money for a project that's like, say, a $12 million project, and we're counting the project as the whole thing, it likely won't be done in 3 years or 4 years. So we're trying to space it down into just like the initial phase or the engineering or something that we can get done within that amount of time. If we start a project in 2023 or 4 and it is not finished, or they end up not being able to spend the money by 2026, we have to give the money back. Yeah.
Mary?
And I will also say, to back you up, Stephanie, that Tolono gave us a handout, which unfortunately wasn't included in this packet, but they did not really, they've had a consultant come in and tell them how much X and Y is going to cost, but they were like, well, this is how much it's going to cost. They didn't say, we want to ask for X, we want to ask for Y. So I completely see that it's very hard to decide what part you're funding and whether or not that will actually get done when it's such a large ask.
Aaron?
And having been the person who just brought these numbers forward, I agree that I don't want to have to go trying to claw this back by chance, or heaven forbid, we'd have to try and cover even a dollar, but I'm just throwing out, I don't really want to have to cover a dollar that we have to send back to the government because it didn't get spent. So just for my own clarification, a quick question for you, Darlene, but if it was broke down into, you mentioned like engineering, if the engineering is the project and they get that completed, because, so I guess coming back to, okay, my example of Ogden, since they've got 4 projects, well, if we have the 200,000 to Ogden, I'm looking at it, okay, if the whole board agrees that we'll give Ogden that, but Ogden then would need to, I guess, kind of work with you, Darlene, you're the executive in your office, your staff, to say these are the specific projects. You have them, but if it stays at that $200,000, you would have to say, okay, we want to truly get the Broadway Street drainage done, so we want to designate 120. I'm just using the numbers off the sheet here. We want to designate 120 towards that, and then the next one we want to do is the northeast drainage. I'm just throwing these out there, which the ask was 125. Well, we're just going to put the 80,000 towards that. So it would almost be 2 different agreements, but the way I'm looking at it is we aren't truly holding, unless I guess the board wants to, but my only thought was the wastewater over the drainage, but from what I'm hearing, again, that's not an issue. We aren't going to try and just throwing that again out in Ogden, we aren't going to try and tell Ogden what to do. Let them decide if the 200,000 goes through, but they will have to designate the 2 or maybe even 3 projects.
But the IGA would have to be about a specific thing. Yes. So like before they got a check, they would have to make a decision.
Yeah, but the total's there, but from the county, but they're going to have to truly sign an IGA saying that the 120, if they want to put a whole 120 towards the Broadway, or if they want to do the 95,000 towards the rail trail drainage first, and then split the rest of the 200,000, which, you know, the number again I brought forth tonight, they would need to designate those and specify them with Darlene, and so that the money's truly designated where it's going to go.
So there's two ways to do that, Aaron. One is that we have done contracts where we've said it will be used for this exact specific thing, and if it's not, whatever's not spent has to be given back. The other way we've done it is with, for example, the Regional Planning Commission. We just finished a contract with them that said you can use it for mortgage assistance, rent assistance, utility assistance, one of those tasks, but it has to be spent by this certain date. So we could do that either way that you want to do it.
So to move things along, I think we've got.
Eric, hi.
Go
Yep.
for it, Kyle.
Raise my hand all night. Can we get, so, I mean, like, we're looking at, obviously, we've been discussing that, you know, a lot of these are less than how much. Can we get formal statements or letters from the different entities saying how they're going to account for that other dollar amount? Because I know it's district's first choice, but I mean, 75,000. Like, Stephanie, I don't even think they're going to be able to spend 75,000 on that project because, you know, what are you gonna buy a truck? Like, I mean, it's such a small portion of it. I mean, I would definitely encourage the people in District 4 to. I mean, it seems like they try to split up the numbers in a way that seemed fair, but I think that you also need to look at the practicality of how you're dividing it up, and I don't think that's very practical. Obviously, it's their choice at the end of the day, but if we as a county enter into that, I mean, it would be nice for us to be able to get clarity on exactly where that money is going to come from, or because I don't even know if 75 can do a portion of it the way that we're doing with some of the other things. So
I hate to make this fight bigger, but these problems are going to get bigger from redistricting for how far away these towns are. Just a side point.
oh yeah, that's not a thing, but anyways, but yeah, that's my point.
Stephanie.
Not to be this person, but have we gotten paper on, I mean, I know we like did way back in the day, but since then, have we gotten any paper on Thomasboro? Am I just missing it? It is a little hard having the stuff in across two packets.
No, I think all we've got from Thomasboro has been in the meetings.
Okay.
I don't think we got any packages or anything from Thomasboro.
And again, this is no offense to Thomasboro, and no offense to the two reps that rep that district, but I do have a hard time nixing a project that we got really specifics on with the Triple Fork. Do you know what I'm saying? And for one that we didn't. And I just wanted to, I know, I'm sorry to go back to number 2. I am fine with doing the 1A and the 1B plan that y'all said, but I do think that that's important.
Did you want to ask the Thomasboro rep a question?
If you could respond, yeah.
I don't know why you guys don't have any papers on it. We do have the engineered, you know, the specs on it, what they recommend, the maps of what we're expecting to do. I don't know if they got lost in the shuffle, if they didn't make it to you guys, but, you know, I'm happy to, you know, distribute it appropriately. I'm not sure, you know, why you guys don't have it, so.
Okay, so we're at that point where I have a decision to make. We could take a 5-minute break because some of us might need a break. And then we can run through these. Given what we got from Aaron, from the caucus, the rural caucus, I think it's important maybe that we then move these things forward with these tentative amounts for discussion at the full board. And then we've got the other two that are in there. They're not in the order of the spreadsheet, which has been so handy tonight. So we'll have to make sure that we're getting the right numbers as we go through. But I would like to take a 5-minute break, only 5 minutes, so that we can try to get this done by 10 tonight. So, but I need a break. I think some other people do. All right, let's have a 1 minute warning. 1 minute. All right, folks, we're going to get back at it. If you want to take your seats and settle down. Aaron? Jacob? Class? All right, thank you very much. All right, we're going to get back at it. We have some formative ideas. We're going to, I think, come up with a way to do this. Stephanie, I think, has a motion that I'd like us to entertain. Stephanie, if you want to go ahead.
So my motion would be that we omnibus a recommendation to the board for districts 1 through 4 with a 2A and a 2B option. And as Aaron, you're going to need to re-articulate the exact numbers and forward that to the full board. Although I would again like to register my concerns specifically about District 4. I'm almost to the point of maybe we just, that's my motion.
So we got a motion to, we're proposing here is that we have this agenda and it's broken up not by district, but we have this really concise direction from Aaron, and we're going to put him on the spot and make him make the motion in a minute, is to put this forward, as Stephanie said, as an omnibus with these numbers. The A and B, I think, applies to District 2. Give 2 options and 2. I think the other ones were pretty clear. So do I get a second on Stephanie's motion? We got a second from Mary. Is there any brief discussion on that, or is that okay with the board? Hearing none, all those in favor? Whoa, nothing. This is just the motion to omnibus these things as we broke them down in the spreadsheet. That's all I'm asking for here. And then I'm going to ask Aaron to make a motion listing exactly what he just told us about with the direction from his rural caucus. through all of these, and then we're going to vote on that. Well, I think we need a motion to do these as an omnibus first.
But yeah, but a motion, but not a vote, because
Okay.
he's going to specify what we're omnibusing.
Okay, correct.
Is that-
You're
is
right.
that-
Thank you.
okay.
I think that works better. So Aaron, if you want to, for the record, go through that, and remember, we want to have sort of an A-B for District 2.
Okay, from District 1, we have the Sangamon Valley Public Water District request of $500,000. So with only the one request from the district, all $500,000 for District 1 goes to Sangamon Valley Public Water District for the advanced water main project in gas leak affected area of Muhammad Aquifer. For District 2, again with $500,000 to spend in District 2, Penfield Water District for the replacement of hydro-pneumatic water tank gets their full request of, and this would be 2A, option 2A, gets their full request of $70,000. Thomasboro, for their project with no specific ask, but with, oh no, I'm sorry, they've got $450,000. But Thomasboro gets $100,000, and Ludlow, with their ask for the upgrades to community water supply distribution system, gets $330,000 towards the $400,000 request. The 2B would be Penfield, again, gets the full $70,000. Ludlow gets $370,000 towards the $400,000 ask, and Triple Fork gets $60,000 towards their culvert replacement project ask. So then District 3, Ogden, $200,000. This would be for drainage, for them to decide, probably, it sounded like, but ultimately for them to decide between the three, but it sounded like rail trail area drainage was probably maybe one of the more significant ones, because they just want to get it done with the new Kickapoo Rail Trail coming through. So maybe if we want to designate that, and then the remaining, I would say maybe towards the Broadway Street, if we're going to be that specific, but at least the 200,000 would go towards drainage as opposed to the wastewater treatment plant, since they had 4 specific asks. The Village of Royal, $200,000 out of their $250,000 ask for the water main project, and Village of St. Joseph, $100,000 towards their storm sewer project. And then District 4, Ivesdale, $175,000 towards the $250,000 ask for upgrades to community water supply distribution system. Pasodum, $175,000 towards the $250,000 ask towards the construction of sanitary sewer collection and treatment. The Pasodum Consolidated Drainage District, $75,000 towards the $181,484 ask for the replacement of main tiles. And Tolono, construction of wastewater treatment plant, with no specific ask, but towards their whole $12 million project would be $75,000. And especially in 4, I'll just add this isn't necessarily part of the motion, but it's been heard and understood by me. I'll get in touch with specifically 4 about the idea of, maybe will the $75,000, really get much done in Tolono? So I'll have that discussion before.
Just a little input for clarification on, it was Royal, right? This is nothing to do with the motion, it's just maybe typographical. It's listed as a water main project, but it is not, correct?
That is
Yeah.
correct. Good evening. My name is Todd Robertson, Mayor Royal, and it is not for a water line project. It is for a update to our water treatment, or our water plant.
Yeah, okay, so we'll fix that in the full board agenda, and thank you for being so patient just to give us that. All right, so we have the motion from Aaron. Do I have a
Re-
second?
Really quick, I'll second it, and then I have a quick question.
Okay.
Can you, the first, and I'm sorry, my brain skipped a beat, I think, because there's two Pasotums, so like I literally, can you give me the figures on Pasotum 1 and Ivesdale?
I
Just the
maybe
numbers.
screwed you up from,
Yeah.
but for the District 4? you mean?
Yes.
Yeah, both Ivesdale and Pasotum, 175 each.
So,
But there's
Two
village-
Pasotums.
there's
So-
village
Oh, I'm sorry.
And then there's the drainage district.
Well, oh, yeah,
75.
well, the Pasotum, Village of Pasotum is the 175.
okay,
And the
Gotcha.
Pasotum Consolidated Drainage District is 75,000.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, the two different
Yeah,
entities there. I understand what you're saying now.
right.
Wasn't quite two different, and never mind.
So, yes, I think I would like to second it, and I'd say I would support it with the caveat that I still am leaning to 2B, but I'll forward the two options, and having a real conversation about Tolono. I don't want to leave Tolono out, but is this really going to make a difference, and if not? And I also want to say this, what this will do then is give Darlene and her staff the green light to do IGAs. We then would vote on every IGA specifically. So if one of these comes back and we're not satisfied with the fact that it can be done in a timely manner, we could say no, and that money would drop back down, and then we could reallocate that money towards a different project. Right? So, but this is, I mean, it's not fair to Darlene to be like, make 18 IGAs. We don't need 18 IGAs. We got to give her some sort of direction.
All right, any other discussion? Kyle?
I want to thank Aaron for coming with this great list. I think this is a really cool way to do it. Stephanie, I think this was originally your idea to split them up that way. So, thank you for making this process easier. And then also to Darlene and her staff that are going to have a handful of IGAs to work through and details to figure out. Just want to express my appreciation. I think we're going to be able to make a good difference with this money.
Darlene?
I have a question about the two that were not the separate
That's going to be another vote.
districts.
That's going to be another thing. Let's vote
Yeah.
on this first and then go to that.
Yeah. All right, with that, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It's unanimous, but it's not going on consent.
Right.
And that's all there is to it.
I have a motion on these other two. So it's really clear from the discussion that we have more than 2 million, we have allocated $2 million for water projects. That's what the board collectively agreed on. We have more than that, and we forwarded more than that to the board. However, I do think that these two other projects are worthwhile. But I think what we would need to do is forward them to the full board for discussion about whether we want to allocate money to them. Like, so we have 2 million allocated, we've put specific projects, but this is more of a discussion, like, do we want to proceed with that? Because then we have to have a real discussion about what we're not funding, right? And so I think I would like to forward those two as a discussion.
Second from Dr. Stewart. Aaron?
And I agree with that. The cover crops specifically, I don't believe there's any one of the rule that are against it, because they aren't. But as opposed to, the idea with these two would be above and beyond the 2 million is the way I take it, because especially the cover crops, we're not going to take money from any of these specific projects. There's none of us in our caucus that is going to do that. We're not going to cut. I'm just picking out the Penfield. They asked for $70,000 for the water tank. We aren't going to take that off and send it towards cover crops. No. And then, of course, the hazardous waste. I mean, that is a county-wide issue. So I understand why it's here at ELUC. It's environment related, but that's a county-wide issue. So, yeah, the idea that it would be money above and beyond. We don't want to. I don't believe any of the urban districts would want to see the $500,000 necessarily cut from their district, to fund these. So, yeah, I'm for at least forwarding him to the full board for discussion.
All right, any other discussion on those? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, again, this will be not on the consent agenda. Moving on, I think the only item we have left then is item O, and very patient Susan is here.
It's my pleasure. Okay, this is the return of the Pollution Control Facility Ordinance update. And since the March meeting, I had a chance to meet with Board Member Storr, and we went over carefully his concerns about two main, I get my notes here so I'm not trying to remember exactly. Okay, the main things we changed since our March ELUC are designated in this packet in blue. So if you're trying to figure that out, what's different. And two primary differences are provisions have been added that pertain specifically to sanitary landfills. Specific change involves using a geological engineer, geologist. Okay, so yeah, a person specializing in issues concerning sanitary landfills. So it's all appropriate, and the Assistant State's Attorney has looked at that and signed off on it, that it's probably fine to do that. The second big change occurs on page 67 of the packet, where you see the application fee schedule, and those rates have been increased significantly based on Consumer Price Index changes since this was initially formulated back in 1991. So with regard to sanitary landfills, however, and the more intense tier of waste, pollution control waste facilities in the second category, the more intense ones, waste disposal, waste incineration, and sanitary landfill, those fees have been increased to cover what we believe would be consultant cost for a county to hire a consultant to review plans received. So those are the main changes. There's some smaller changes that you might see on the next page, on 12, just to increase the application fee balance on hand to $10,000 from $2,500. I think that covers our main changes since the ELUC meeting, based on my notes here.
All right, thank you, Susan. Any questions for Susan? All right, do I have a motion? Motion from Chris. I think I got a second from Mary. Anything further? All right, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? So do we want this on consent? Our one and lonely item on the consent agenda? Any reason not to? All right. That was it. Okay. Thank you very much, Susan. Thank you for being so patient. Other business, we have a semi-annual review of closed session minutes. Did everybody see those? Aaron?
I just make the motion to, as per the state's attorney's advice, to keep all the minutes closed as, again, the state's attorney advised.
All right, do I have a second on that? Second from Kyle. We can't have discussion, so all those in favor say aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, those minutes remain closed. We have monthly reports from January 2022. Thank you, John. Anything you want to add to that? Or, all right. There is no chair's report. The only item to be placed on the consent agenda tonight is 10O. So, and that would be the pollution control. And thank you for that. Thank you, everybody, for your patience. And I now call this meeting adjourned at 9:30.